Why am I writing Bob a check for $100? No, I'm writing you a check for $100 to give the Bob. Why am I doing that? Didn't we just do that last month? Why am I doing that again? Oh, because he needs it to pay his rent, so I'm writing him a check for $100 to pay his rent. This morning we're talking about manipulation and why you, as the loved one of an addict, get caught in that confusing state of not knowing what's happening in reality and not knowing what the truth is. So manipulation is classically defined as behaviors that people do to gain power or influence over somebody else. And manipulation doesn't have to be a pejorative term, but in this case, it is. Because we're dealing with the demons that addicts face, that they bring into our lives, and how to work with them. So in manipulation, if someone is trying to gain power or influence over you, they are normally doing it, just like I mentioned in the beginning. I'm writing a check to Bob, who I think needs it to pay his rent. We're trying to be good neighbors. We're trying to make sure that he's okay. But really, I'm writing a check to the addict. Not that Bob is the addict. I'm writing a check to my addicted loved one who is manipulating me by using somebody else's hardship when they are actually going to take the money and use it for something else. Hi, I'm Tanya. I am a craft-informed coach. I work with loved ones of addicts, helping them to provide the environment and the structure that the addict needs to get well and the whole family get well. So today we're talking about manipulation, and there's several forms of manipulation, but let's talk first about how you feel when this is happening to you. So when you're being manipulated, it's a transactional relationship. They're not building relationship, they're not connecting, they're not looking to be with you. They are looking to get what they want or what they need. Now, if we think about this, what does that do for the addict? The addict, because addiction is such a stigma in our society, they have to live a double life. They cannot connect, give their real feelings, talk about what's really going on. They have to hide and say, Bob needs rent money, but you can write the check out to me, or just give me the cash and I'll give it to him. Now, anybody who has loved an addict knows that if this is happening, if Bob really needs rent money, you need to go to Bob and ask Bob. So that money doesn't go into the fund for the addiction. And so how do you feel when manipulation is happening? And if we were to talk inside ourselves, if we were to go to, the conscious would say, okay, I'm writing a check to Bob, but that doesn't feel good. My gut doesn't feel like that's really what's happening. Is that really the truth that's going on? This doesn't feel safe. I don't feel like this is the truth. This feels the wrong way to go, and somehow I want to apologize that I can't write a check to Bob because I just don't feel like this is a good place to be. I'm just super tired of having this feeling. I don't know what this is, and I don't know how to handle it. So this week we're talking about the demons that come with addiction, and we talked about lying yesterday. So this time we're talking about manipulation, and manipulation can have lies in it, but it is very different. And all those conscious feelings well up, and they well up in the body, and we really struggle with what to do, because this person who's been leading a double life, they've been doing it most likely for a long time, and they're really good at it, and taking that head on becomes really difficult for people who are not skilled at looking at what manipulation is. So when we begin to feel those feelings, mistrust, lack of safety, feeling like I need to apologize but I haven't done anything wrong, exhausted, confused, afraid, all of those things cause us to question our behavior. So let's talk about some types of manipulation. One of them that is high in the media, connected with narcissism, connected with all kinds of things, is gaslighting. And gaslighting isn't new. This term's been around for a long time, 20s and 30s style term. And it makes the person who is being gaslighted feel like they are not worthy of expressing themselves, or they shouldn't have emotions, or their emotions aren't valid, or they are just not, almost, it can make them feel like they're crazy. And what is happening is the addict is trying to get away from the wrongdoing that they have done. And as they're doing this, they're making the other people feel crazy. So raise your hand if you've been in a relationship to where you feel like you're nuts. And that's what often happens is this style of manipulation can, when you work with the client, the addict looks smooth and slick, and they're able to play this double life, and they're kind and they're courteous and they're easy to be with, whereas the person who is trying to love this person and be part of them and be connected with them looks crazy, because they are so off balance of not knowing what's true and what is true. Did they write a check to Bob? Did they write a check to the addict? Is that going to a dealer? Where is that going? And it's also the shutdown of feelings with gaslighting of, I don't know why you're crying. I didn't do anything wrong. I came home when I said I was going to, and I just had a couple drinks. What is the big deal? I work hard. So your feelings are invalidated. The next one that is often used is passive aggressive behavior. And this one, man, we get hung up in this all the time of they don't want to discuss certain topics, they shut it down or change the subject. You're trying to talk about the budget and they say, oh, we really need to talk about the drainage that's not happening around the house, or the roof is such an issue. Let's focus on that, not on how much I spent on my personal medicine this month. Or they will say, I'd really like to go to that. I'm planning on going to that, and I will be there at that event, but I can't commit. Some things might come up. So just not being connected, just not being committed, and we'll ride through it. Or they will come in and say something that seems okay. Hey, there seems to be some dirty dishes in the sink. They're not taking responsibility. They're not asking for help. They're pointing out the obvious, but they are making a request. That's a very passive aggressive move. When it gets clearer is when they are blaming you. And we're really going to spend some time on blame and shame, but we're going to talk about that next week. And one of the reasons why they're blaming you is they don't have a clarity on how to handle their emotions. So they can't say to themselves, I need to take care of this. I need to handle this. In this double life, it's easier to push it to the outside, to push it away from them, because that strikes the pain. If that strikes the pain, they're afraid of using again. They don't want to use again. It doesn't feel good, and they want to push it outside. So that's simple on blaming. Then we get into some ones that they seem more like we see on TV. Threats, coerciveness. If you don't do this, I'm going to take the kids. If this doesn't happen, I won't bring home my paycheck. These kind of threats are more clear when you're being manipulated. Leaves you, as we talked about earlier, feeling unsafe, feeling unable to show your real feelings. So it begins to compound. Now this withholding and withdrawal, like not bringing home the paycheck, not giving affection unless you do what they ask you to do, or, here's the bigger one, overlook what they are doing. That's huge. It's like turning a blind eye. And this may be a non sequitur, but thank you, ADHD. I've always wondered how, when you've got somebody like JFK and Jackie Kennedy, She must have just turned a blind eye to all the affairs because the price was too high to actually see it. Or maybe they argued behind closed doors. Maybe Bill and Hillary did the same thing. There is a reason to turn a blind eye. And even in the AA Big Book, when it talks about getting sober, is that going to crash the family if you bring in other people, if you tell the boss, if you tell those types of things? The family support may depend on you turning a blind eye until you have the skills. That's what we're working on, until you have the skills to work through this, especially if the person who needs to get sober is your major breadwinner. Been there, had to work through that piece of not bringing home paychecks, of not making the bills. That's a really sticky situation on how you handle that. And then the next one is isolation. So we see this a lot with family and addiction, that the addict doesn't want the rest of the family to know, so the intimate and closest are isolated from the rest of the family. Because if we go to the Christmas party, if we go to dinner, I'm going to have some drinks, they're going to question you, you're going to have to lie, you're going to be angry at me. It just is a big circle. So not only isolation from family, there can be isolation. I don't want you to work because I want you to be home to take care of me when I need you. There can be a lot of things that come with this double life. Now, manipulation is not just for addicts. There's plenty of other reasons why people might manipulate. But those 5 styles, gaslighting, passive aggressive, lying and blaming, threats and coerciveness, withdrawal and withholding, and isolation, are all keys to what's happening. So you're like, great, that was thrilling, Tanya. Can we talk about something a little lighter? I don't want to deal with this. There you go. I don't want to deal with this. This is hard. I don't want to recognize this in my relationship. Let's take a deep breath. All progress starts by telling the truth. And this is where we get into, can the addict tell the truth to themselves? And if we go back to the Big Book, it's those of us that are unable to be truthful that can't stay sober. So when you are looking at honesty, I'm going to look at my cheat sheet just a little bit. The statements like, this is how you can help them tell the truth. And that's what we're all about, right? Providing the environment where the addict has the safety, the clarity, and the commitment from you to help them get sober. You are not powerless. You have opportunity to walk this story with them and to work through these pieces because you're the expert more about this person than anybody else. So when we're looking at this, if you start with honesty instead of, if you loved me, you would make time for me and we would spend time together. And the honest approach would be, I really enjoy spending time with you. Could we take a walk? Could we go to the movies? I'd really like to do that on X day. You see the difference? And the way we come at them with manipulation is, if you don't pick up the kids, you clearly don't care about them. It's very passive aggressive and manipulative. Instead of, hey, the kids really want to spend time with you. I know that you really like spending time with them. What would be the best opportunity for you to enjoy spending time with the kids? I think Saturday would be awesome. What do you think? These are I statements. They're clear. They're starting with honesty. The next one is, I would like to talk to you about something, but I know you don't have time. So you've already put a layer of guilt and shame in there. Instead of saying, I really would like to talk to you about something, when is a good time? Those are how the person in the relationship, the loved one with the addict, manipulates. So how do we shift this? We start, one, what we talked about yesterday, getting present. So part of the gaslighting, the passive aggressive, the isolation, all those things is to stop. Let's put on our conscious hat again. Stop, go inside yourself and say, $100 for Bob. I did this last month. What is really going on here? And to pause and to think about what's happening. Then, once you have paused, you can begin to think through the decisions you want to make. So your inside thought processes might be, how do I approach this knowing that I'm probably not going to get the truth? What do I really want to know from this situation? We've talked about this before. We don't want to ask the questions we really don't want to know the answers to. We don't want to ask the questions that we already know the answers to. I can pretty much guarantee that this money is for X addiction. How do I want to address that? Then the next step would be to think about the timing of when you are going to address that and what the repercussions are going to be. If I talk about this now, it's super heightened. Maybe we should wait on it. And you could hold with that and separate yourself from the addict and walk out and wait until there was a better time to talk about it. Now that may heighten things. So if you're safe, if you're secure in your relationship and there's no physical violence, that may be a place to start. If there is, you need to assess whether your safety is going to be at risk if this doesn't happen. So the deeper issue here is money management. So you need to come back to your consciousness and say, I understand the truth of this situation. What is the safest, healthiest way for me to handle this for me? And then it gets deeper. Maybe it is separating out the money. Maybe it is letting them figure out how they want to spend their excess cash. There are a lot of things that we can coach through around those issues. So as you're looking at this, all progress starts by telling the truth. And we're going to talk tomorrow about what is the double life that the addict is living that requires the lies, the manipulation. Where have they come into this place? And can they really see that this is happening? And is it your job to bring this to the forefront? So today we talked about all of the things that go into manipulation, what it looks like. This is what I want you to do. Be conscious of when this is happening. This doesn't just happen with your addicted loved one. There are other people in your life who behave in passive aggressive ways. Like we said yesterday, you listen to 10 to 200 lies every day. And the withdrawal or the threats or the coerciveness, listen for those things. Don't respond, just listen. Again, this is Tanya, Coach Tanya Gioia, and what I do is help loved ones create that space so that their addicted loved one has the opportunity to feel loved, cared about, and move towards sobriety. So looking forward to seeing you tomorrow. Be sure and check the course below. Bye.